Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's show is once again a collection of true encounters with cryptid creatures that have been sent in by my wonderful subscribers and listeners. I do hope you guys enjoy these terrifying and quite sinister encounters. As ever, please do let us know down below in the comments. Please do like and share. And don't forget to hashtag Team Fear. Without further ado, let's get into the first encounter involving a Sasquatch. Sent in by Kathy Gabriel. Let's get straight into that. Hi DMT, my name is Kathy Gabriel and I live in a Birch River, Manitoba, just outside a small town called Swan River. But anyways, I live in a small bush town and we hunt all different types of animals, to some trapping as well. One day we took our dog out with us to the bush and we have quite a few new fresh cuts here. And our dog Chopper is a German boxer. Well, he jumped off the quad bike and chased the jumper, a deer. He ran into one of the fresh cuts towards the back there, and there was a trail going down towards the river. So myself, my husband and son followed, but soon lost track of our dog's tracks. But then we did find some very strange and weird looking tracks. But we just pushed it off as bear tracks because we do have a lot of bears around here where we live. So my husband asked me to stay at the top of the bush where the fresh cut was. And we were whooping back and forth because that's how we know where each other is. It's normal for us to hear that sound, but for a good 15 minutes or so I was whooping and nothing. I'd lost them. But I did hear sticks cracking and then a growl. I looked all over because my husband had the gun and then nothing again. So I started yelling louder and louder. I was getting scared, and then out of nowhere I could smell a smell that I'd never smelled before. It was like a musty old smell, like the way a wolf smells. And then there were trees that had fallen over, all over the place. Even ones with the roots and dirt sticking up. So all you could see was the black, and at this time I just happened to look down about 40 feet from me as a big, hairy, dark brown man looking thing stood up from where the fallen tree was with the roots and black dirt. It stood up from there like it was kneeled down there, and I don't know if it moved over to there, but I didn't notice. But here I was, standing there, looking at this thing, and it was looking back at me too. It must have felt like forever, but then he turned and took one step and he was gone into the bush. Then it was where my husband and son were, and I just froze. I couldn't yell back at my husband because I could hear him in the distance, but by the time he got to me, he said that I looked like I'd seen a ghost. So I told him what happened, and he told me that he'd smelled something funny. He knows the bush very well, and it's something that he couldn't explain. So he told his son on the way up there to watch out for something moving around in the bush. But he said maybe from me whooping, it got the Bigfoot's attention. I always watched shows about this stuff, but never believed that I would too encounter one. But now I do. I had my phone, but I couldn't move, and until this day, I will not go back to that spot. From that moment on, I really watched whilst I'm in the bush. That's my story, DMT, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, Kathy. The next story is sent in by a dear friend who'll go by the name as Raider, and set on a small family ranch on the outskirts of Abilene, Texas, and is pertaining to a goatman or possible goatman sighting. It's going to take some time to get the full story on this one, guys, as I know it's quite a struggle for the witness to recount the ordeal. As they've explained to me, it comes back in patches and blurs, and so they're going to try and get that over to us. But this is part one of the encounter. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Hi DMT. My family owns a small ranch on the outskirts of Abilene, Texas, just down the stretch of 277. We were having a family reunion in 2007. And at the time, I was just 13 and curious about zoology, mainly animals and how they work. With us owning a ranch, I was able to pick up on how animals acted around threats or if they were startled. As for the reunion, us having a big house meant we had to host the reunion. Most of the guests stayed inside while the kids stayed out and adventured. The ranch itself was 3 miles wide and 4 long, so there was plenty of exploring to do. Me and my brother had mapped most of it out along the fence line so we wouldn't get lost. But with 7, 8 to 10 year olds and 6, 12 to 14 year olds, there was strength in numbers. So we braved the thickets and old pines to the northeast of the property. With so many trees and shrubs, cattle couldn't graze here, so I know whatever happens next wasn't a cow protecting her baby. Half a mile at least from the house, we came across an old warehouse for farm and logging equipment. Dust had settled everywhere, so we couldn't really see through the windows. Well, after navigating to the back, we found a door frame without a door, but rusted broken hinges. Lucky for us, no one brought a flashlight, so we were left blind, unless near a window. 30 or 40 minutes later of exploring and collecting assortments of rusted hammers, a wooden-handled axe and various wrenches, a metallic screech assaulted my ears. Passing it off as the wind and old metal building, we decided to leave and go out the way we'd came in. The 6th person to go out that door was Brent, and had to jump out of a way as a tree toppled down, and then we heard a different scream, one from my cousin Taylor, who was frantically pointing into the trees. After the hysteria of the moment, she calmed down and explained, I quote, "An apparition of the devil shoved that tree down." More details was provided from Lena and said it was a goat man. Most people know what a goat man or who a goat man is, and this was vivid. Horns on a human face and torso, but legs that stand upright like a man, but a goat. That is part 1, and I will give the rest after I finish work. When I get the chance, it's very vague and sometimes comes back randomly. I do struggle sometimes, but thank you for listening. Regards, Raider. This next encounter, or should I say encounters, was sent in by my dear friend Jody. Let's get straight into that. DMT, I'll tell you what happened to me my first. My aunt, God rest her soul, could tell some good stories and would be in her garden and something would come to the tree line, not 10 yards from her, and sit and pop its teeth at her, like a bear does, but this was no bear. She said it always walked away on 2 feet, so tall she showed me. I was around 4 foot and it was 3 of me. She said it was blonde with black spots on it. She said there was an old abandoned house up on a mountain and it slept under the porch. I was 12 years old at the time and thought, I'll go over and look at that in the morning. My cousin, who we hung out all the time with, went with me. I had my 30-06 and snuck out my aunt's big 44 Magnum pistol. I had 50 or more shells in my backpack and more in my pockets. My cousin had his 308 and 22 8-shot pistol. Both of us had knives and we thought we were ready for anything. So we thought. We made it to the top of the mountain. Started on an old logging road. We kept hearing and catching glimpses of something on each side of us. We freaked out and started to turn around and leave. But I told Steve, my cousin, to look next to the house. We need to use the good road. We can get to the highway quick. Not if we're dead, he said. So we went on about another 100 more yards and came out onto the dirt road. He wanted to leave then, but I said, do you want to be able to say I looked or say you ran? I turned toward the house. I knew nothing was there. Boy, was I wrong. Now think of a movie where a wolf-deformed ugly wolf was looking dead at the camera, or you. Back end moving like it's going to jump. I stood shocked. I can't say how long it was there. Its head kind of looked lionish, but dog ears and stubby snout, and a Mr. T mohawk on top of its head, and a huge mane down its neck, chest, and back, and over its shoulders. And very short yellowish hair down its body, with black spots all over it. When it stood up, it was on 2 legs. 2 fucking legs. This was in 1980. This only happens in the movies. But I raised my pistol and put sights on its head. I was pointing up because this thing was 10 foot tall or more. I froze, I couldn't pull the trigger. And then my cousin said, "Oh shit, shoot that!" And it snapped me back out of my shock. And as I fired, I realised it had come halfway to us. So I fired again. Steve was after me with 2 shots to the head, and I don't know how many more, and Steve hit it. We looked at each other. We both had tears coming down. We pissed our pants. and we was going to look at it again, when all of a sudden, on each side of us, 2 more of these things jumped out of the woods. We had already reloaded, but they ran to the dead one, and, well, I hope it was. They then picked it up and ran down the road into the mountains. We went to where it had been, and there was blood and I guess brain matter was there all over the place. We never thought to get samples. I mean, who's going to take 2 12-year-old kids seriously? I always thought my aunt was just scaring me, but I knew then she knew what she was talking about. We was fixing to leave, and then there was this god-awful scream that seemed to vibrate the forest. It made me hurt, and then another one joined in, and then another. We took off, and it seemed like we was never going to get out of there. Every shadow, every stump looked like this thing, and the 2 that carried it off looked just like it, but younger. Okay, on to the second encounter. Now, I had a friend tell me this, and I'm just going to act like him because it's, well, easier that way. My name's Cody. Last February, me and Tiff, my girlfriend, went walking to camp and fish, and if I got lucky, a deer. I had my 308 Magnum, and we would walk a couple of hours on the railroad tracks. We crossed the trestle, about 100 foot long, and came to the tunnel, where people would camp inside a lot. There was a lot of spoiling, things have happened here, and it had started to rain, and we were both soaked. So, we built a fire inside the tunnel. The train never runs anymore. I told Tiff I'm going to fish under the trestle to catch supper. Unknown to me, she went into the bush to relieve herself, and the next thing I heard was bloody murder screaming. Tiff went across the trestle like a track star. I came up not knowing anything, and then she pointed behind me, and this huge, 8 to 9 foot tall ape-like creature was running towards me. I ran to the other side of the trestle with Tiff, and the thing stopped. I got a good look then. It was a Bigfoot, but it looked young, short hair, flat nose, the Down syndrome look. Sorry, it's the only way to describe it. When it tried to walk across the trestle, it kept walking though its stride was 4 of the ties. Then it went under and tried to crawl across like a spider, but couldn't hold on. It weighed no less than 500 pounds at least. I figured it would cross the creek, but it never did. I screamed at it, "If you're a person in a suit, you better tell me, or I'm going to shoot." Well, it just looked at me. And it was a male, and it must have been getting aroused. I can tell you why at the end. I shot this thing in the chest and it barely bent over. I shot it again in the shoulder and it barely phased it, or slapped at it like a bee sting. We ran until we got on a logging road and made it to the highway. I looked back, and a bigger grey Bigfoot stood up with steam coming out of its mouth. Its breath. I raced to shoot it, but it was gone in a split second. We went to a house of a friend and Tiff looked, and she had just started her monthly cycle. We all believed, like any wild animal, it smelled her menstrual blood and went crazy and was after her. But I'd have died before they'd hurt her. So, as you see, they are like all animals, wild, dangerous, and at times, crazy. Now the next true encounter was sent in by David, and he gone by the title of "A Decade of Werewolf Stalking, Travelling, and Minor Evidence of Such Creatures." Without further ado, let's get straight into that. So you want to hear a scary story? First, I should get some background information. I guess it probably started in a small town in North Georgia. There is a 1,000-acre national forest reserve behind my home of 25 years. My father and I have lived there as long as I can remember. I moved away for 3 years but returned. As a coincidence, or maybe missed some sighting or possible warning that these creatures may have indeed been there longer than a decade. My uncle used to sit on the porch and in a drunken rage fire a shotgun at the devil's hounds in the fields. However, I have not noticed things until the past year or so. As of the age of 16, I got high and drunk and did marijuana and cocaine. So anything that may have seemed odd then, I chalked up to being high. However, this first real thing, I suppose, or encounter so to speak, was late one winter night around 2 in the morning. Now, keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, throughout my childhood, I have been all over this 1,000-acre reserve, national forest, whatever you want to call it. It's basically untouched land. I ran upon every animal there is to run up on in my part of the woods. But that Friday night, me and 2 of my friends One as plastered as I was, the other the sober driver. M was sitting there drinking, rolling the joint and enjoying the full moon with a light blanket of snow and bare trees and good company, and a good high. Now, in the midst of the talking, sipping and some cuddling, there's this howl. Not like a coyote, we have no wolves. Now, it's a howl that rings across the tops of the surrounding mountains, with a roar behind it like no lion could ever hope to match. Now, normally, me being a skeptic and such, I would have paid no mind to this. However, the two women that were with me froze, turned pale white and refused to stay any longer. They'd been in this town as long as I, and have known most of the animals as well as I do. Now, this howl or roar shook the windows in the car we were in, whilst in the driveway. And that, my friends, is just the beginning. I have always had dogs, mainly pit bulls, that are very loyal, raised correctly, and they're also very sweet and protective. They are also fearless, and they are some of the first dogs I used as soldiers. Now, throughout the next years, I would notice small things, such as them hiding in their 24x24 kennel. I would throw stakes in there, and they would hide in their doghouse. So, for the most part, the next few years there is nothing solid, or nothing frightening, apart from two bad howls that are not placed as known animals, and noises like whispering, almost yipping, like coyotes. As we press on to the last year, last November in fact, I had double pneumonia and had actually died, literally. So, it was bed rest for a week. Well, first and foremost, I have not done any drugs in a long time, and I'm a proud father of 2 children and a wonderful job. So, pneumonia I croaked and I'm in bed bound for a week. Now, my fiancée at the time has been mentioning the door handles turning at night. I told her she was crazy. So, right before Thanksgiving, my 3rd night on bed rest, around 4:30 in the morning, what do I begin hearing? I hear the doorknobs being turned. Slowly, at first. Then, more violently, and then the door begins to shake, front and back, and then pounding beside the window so hard that my TV fell off the wall it was mounted on. Now, 15 minutes of this, and then silence. I go outside, and there's nothing. I shine lights, and there's absolutely nothing. I decide to get fully dressed to get some breakfast and cigarettes around 5 AM, and on my way to my truck, which is parked maybe 30 feet from the door, I hear this god-awful roar that I felt in my bones and soul. And I saw nothing but a glint of yellow eyes, a golden amber almost that seemed to have the essence of a light behind them. No moon, nor light, no nothing. Just a growl that was more of a roar, and the yellow eyes of the devil, maybe 15 feet between us. Well, these creatures, whatever they are, exist, no doubt. The cycles aren't bound by the full moon though, nor the seasons. However, fall and winter seem to be their most president times that occurrences happen. And it wasn't until that, after that night, where I stumbled into the creature head on basically, that I believe my fiancée at the time has witnessed and heard strange things. Shaped shadows around the home which I assumed was bare. It's not uncommon in the rural areas we live in for such creatures, bear, mountain lions and so on. However, after the night the creature and I came too close for comfort is when I started to pay attention to things. Bumps on the house, communication it would seem like, slight yips and clicks all around in the middle of the night. Almost like a coyote, yet out of season, nowhere near as prominent. Now this goes on from November, the night I stumbled upon the beast, until February the following year. Silence at night and an uneasy feeling. My father shares the property with me, and a dog kennel as well. It's always dark when we get up for work and put the dogs up, and I never mentioned this to him. But one night on the porch of my house, over a beer, he asked me, "You're smart, and you're keeping your eyes out for what's here." I never see it, I never hear it, but in the morning, when I go to put the dog up and walk to my truck, I feel it watching. Something that doesn't seem it should be here. I put my cigarette out and told him just to carry his 9mm Smith & Wesson wherever around the yard. I don't know what it is, but you're right, it shouldn't be here. Now, as we pass until February, the story pattern's the same, the routine is the same. Get up and go to work outside before light. You feel it, the presence of someone or something watching. Not a sound, not a bird, not a squirrel, not a sound, just black and a heavy fog of dread. At night it's the same. Thumps on the walls, sometimes taps, sometimes hard. So hard, it seems the house will fall off its foundation. On into February. And the activity had almost come to a halt. There was almost nothing anymore. No fear of being outside, no noises, and the fauna returning to normal. Birds sing in the morning, deer are in the fields, front and back and adjacent. I returned from work around 3 one day, earlier than most, and realised I had not bought any more cigarettes, and it royally pisses me off to wake up with no smoke. So, as tired as I was, I went to the store. In the middle of my doorknobs being turned, windows and doors banged on, and every other damn thing you can imagine, I bought a 12-gauge pump shotgun. And yes, my friend, I bought the Dragon's Breath shells, and 3 more special armor-piercing explosive rounds, just for these bloody bastards. And this shotgun rides with me loaded to this very day, and has since, well, December. It was bought with my Christmas bonus. So back to leaving for the store, for cigarettes. Now, here in Georgia, it gets dark around 6, and at 3 that day, it was almost like dusk, and there was a heavy fog from a prolonged rain. Now, to get to the store closest where I go, often it's simple. Leave the long road, make a right in 2 miles, make 1 more right, and the store's a half a mile on the left. I went with no issues, but on the way back as I'm about to make the turn left to head home, I see it in an unkempt field. In a heavy fog I see the silver grey beast on all 4s. Now, I had a full-size Dodge Ram 1500 at the time, with a lift. A bear, full-grown black bear, on all 4s could barely stretch its neck over the grill. But no, this thing? This was looking at me, eye level with it. It was huge. Then it stood, and oh my god, I was looking at its abdomen. I parked the truck at the edge of the field. I got out and grabbed my gun. Now understand this. This is where I was stupid, but months of torment, night after night, no sleep, crying children, a crying fiance. I took 2 shots with the explosive rounds and hit it dead centre in the chest. I saw the blood. The damn thing never even flinched though. Never moved, made a noise, made a step. Nothing. Until it dropped to all 4s again and walked off into the fog. Since that day, I have not seen it anymore. Anything or, well, nothing to speak of at all. And work is booming, my friend. But I will catch up with you another time and collaborate the evidence in all of my old phones. Some are cracked and some are water damaged, but most will still work. And I will show you the make of the bullets that pierced it. They come in 3 to a pack for $35. You don't shoot these for fun. And I want to thank you for all of your kind concern, but in all honesty, dying wasn't as bad as you think. But being brought back to life hurt like hell. Regards, David. Wow, hope you guys enjoyed those short but equally terrifying encounters. Thank you ever so much to all of the guys and girls that have got in contact with myself over the last few weeks. Fantastic speaking with you all. Obviously there'll be quite a few updates and follow-ups with some of those reports, guys. I will keep you up to date as soon as I get any feedback and any updates. I'll get them straight up onto the channel or obviously in the cabin as well. I hope you're all having a wonderful weekend. Don't forget to please like and share. But most of all, remember, if you're going hunting or hiking in the deep, dark forests, make sure you keep your wits about you, your eyes and ears open, and above all, remember, be safe, not sorry.